Greetings, loyal viewers! Well, after my top 6 worst skins from Nitro Fueled, I thought it would only be appropriate to do one this time going over what are, in my honest opinion, some of the absolute best skins this game has to offer. Gotta be honest, this one was a little tougher to write for than the last one, simply because there are just so many awesome skins from this game that Beanox has done such a wonderful job on, and on top of that, was such a struggle to decide on what the appropriate amount would be perfect, all things considered, without going a little too overboard. Before we get started though, same rules as the last list. First, 1 skin per character. Second, legendary skins only. In other words, no skins that are basically just recolors. Third, podium animations will not be a contributing factor. And fourthly, to remember that this is all my opinion at the end of the day. If you happen to dislike any of the skins I'm about to show off here, that's perfectly fine. Anyways, on with the countdown. I'm going to start this off with an almost ironic inverse of my last list with a skin of one of my least favorite characters, that being Entrance. The biggest thing I like about this skin is just simply the obvious homage to Pinocchio, one of my all-time favorite stories and even one of my favorite Disney movies of the early era of Disney, despite the fact that the actual story is pretty messed up if you know the context. Not really too much else I can say about this one, except I just love the homage, plus I love the little details like the chips in him. If you can see it, I don't know if you can see it from what I'm showing off here. Either way, and the added kaleidoscope colors I think are a nice touch, so on to the next one. I almost went with Caveman Zem for this, but instead went with this one for the pure reason that it honestly reminds me even more so of the Norks from Reignited Trilogy, specifically the ones from Beastmakers. In fact, is there a theory out there that Zem is actually a Nork that escaped from the Dragon Worlds after Spyro destroyed Metalhead, who is actually a creation of Zem and the other Norks and hooked up a deal with Velo to one day get back at Spyro? No? Well then forget what I just said. But I think you get the gist. Not the coolest skin of them all, but definitely the best looking one for Zem thus far, which, considering that he's another design I'm usually not the biggest fan of, I think that deserves some credit. As a dog lover, and with us having lost a beloved member of our family last month, I feel like this skin just speaks to me a bit more over time. I'll be honest, Zam is another design I generally don't care too much about overall, but this skin is just real cool to look at. I especially love both the collar and the tuft blue hair on his head in replacement of the tuft of purple spike hair on the regular skin. The only thing that holds this one back a little bit more on the list is that I kind of wished they made his idle animations in the cart a bit more unique to match the dog look going for him, such as him not croaking like a frog for one, and instead panting more like a real dog, which Zam himself does do sometimes, but more for the podium animations, which, as I mentioned in the beginning and in the last list, is not a qualifier. This is one of those kind of skins that just feels like a total given, but I don't care. This skin is still really cool, so to speak. And on top of that, the idea of a Rockhopper penguin being a ninja is just funny to me. Other little details too, like the headband, the katana blade, and even the funny little ninja-styled ponytail is honestly really funny on a penguin to me. Not really too much else I can say of that, unfortunately, except that as legendary skins go, this one blends the line of both being really funny and awesome at the same time. While we're on the subject, as I'm still editing this, I still haven't finished the gold bar in this month's Grand Prix, but as you can see, I really want to, because this skin is absolutely funny, and the colors are just really nice and appealing. Above all that, though, is the rather interesting questions this skin raises, like, how did this happen? Why did it happen? Was there some strange time anomaly based on what we can see in the track Prehistoric Playground? So many interesting questions like that and more are raised from just this skin alone, and in my opinion is more than a good enough reason for it to land on the list and in the number 10 spot. Speaking of goofy, some may definitely disagree with this choice, as from what I've personally seen of those that play Nitro's Oxide in the online mode, this one is often played by players the least, but in my opinion, while the Hot Rod skin is still pretty good too, this one just cracks me up with the idea of seeing a threatening villain with nothing on but a shower cap and a bath towel. Even his skin icon for this is just so funny to look at. This is quite possibly the only time you would ever see Oxide as genuinely embarrassed as this. Also, tell me if this sounds a bit familiar. a crazy spider-like creature with a shower cap who wants world domination and also has yellow eyes. Where have I heard that before? And while we're on the topic of familiar, you have no friggin' clue how hard it was for me to pick between this and Sabertooth Purah, because they're just so darn cool. But the reason I ultimately went with this skin is purely because it reminds me a lot of Puss in Boots from Shrek 2. And let's be honest, anything that reminds me of easily the funniest character from a hilarious movie like Shrek 2 earns a lot of points in my book. One last thing to note is that I do kind of wish that, honestly, that regular Purah skin had the blue eyes that this skin has, as they look a bit better on him than the yellow one does in my opinion, but that's probably just me. This one, for me personally, felt like such a no-brainer, so to speak, as the idea of a robotic Cortex just seemed like a hilarious idea from the get-go, and in my honest opinion, Beanox did not disappoint with the end result. Everything from the black Tesla coils forming into his hair on the sides of his head, from the machinery wrapped around his abnormally large brain, everything about this design in the way it incorporates the mechanical stuff that not only resembles the iconic design but is done in a way that strangely kinda makes sense, at least by Crash Bandicoot standards. Like the last entry, this one was kind of tough to pick as the other skins are also neat, but this one was one I've wanted to see from the very beginning, and is the perfect summation of how to deliver on a look that was practically gift-wrapped for them. Of all the motorsport skins for the Nitro squad out there, Donna's is easily my favorite, as it just looks the coolest out of all of them. Don't get me wrong, aside from Liz, the other ones are good too, but something about this one, from the colors to the hairstyle that just looks really, really good on her, to the overly confident expressions, it's just one that encompasses the awesomeness of the team named Nitro Squad. She may not be of my preferred playstyle like Amy is, but like I said, Donna easily looks the best out of all of them. And I would even dare say looks the best out of them non-motorsport. It would have been an absolute sin not to have a Coco skin on this list. Like the previous entries, this one was a real tough one, as the legendary skins are all very nice and adorably precious to look at. But I ultimately went with the one that became an absolute favorite of mine from the very moment I saw in the customization trailer I saw that came out before the game. This skin just absolutely ups the adorable levels to the highest they could possibly go, and then some. And trust me, for Coco, that bar was already set pretty high to begin with. I don't have too much else to say about the skin, but anytime I just look at it, well...
My heart is melting! Oh my god! Oh shit!
Yeah, don't act like you didn't see this one coming. Make no mistake, his Stone Age skin is awesome too, but this one just oozes sci-fi, which I feel is very befitting of Entropy. This one is not my absolute favorite in terms of how it looks, although it is freaking cool, but this one took me a lot of getting good with the game, as this one you can only unlock by beating all of Nitro's Oxide's time trials. Man, let me tell you, beating those for both the achievement and getting this was very tough, but in my opinion was all worth it if you ask me. I think the coolest thing about the skin, aside from getting it and the sci-fi tech, is how, and I don't know if this is just me, but it looks very Tron-esque and even feels like it to a certain extent. Almost as if Entropy was auditioning as the villain before they said no. That would be a very funny story if you ask me. And now we have what is easily my favorite skin from this month's pre, yes, even more so than fake Baby T, despite how funny that skin is. This one is just a pure nostalgic skin, as for some of you who may not know, this is pretty much his outfit in Crash Bandicoot Warped, as he served as the first boss in that game and fought you in the Colosseum in Rome. Albeit pretty pathetically if you ask me. But even so, this skin just makes me feel so nostalgic every time I look at it. On that note, of all the entries, this one was easily the toughest for me to pick, as Crash has not one, not two, but 3 total skins that are basically his outfits from Warped, and I love all of them. But in the end, I went with the biker skin simply because A, it just makes the most sense to me for a kart racer, B, as far as we know, while I was never a big fan of the biker levels in Warped, it does seem like those levels was a bit of a test for Naughty Dog to make CTR further down the road. While we can't exactly prove that, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. And C, Biker Crash just looks freaking awesome in general, and Naughty Dog totally knew this, as it's used on the cover arts for both the North American and PAL regions. Now, as for the honorable mentions, which there are a ton, as this was a very hard list for me to write despite how short it may seem, they are pretty much, but not limited to, the other legendary skins that didn't end up on either here or the last countdown. These include Aviator and Scuba Crash, Tiny Biker and Beach Coco, Mad Scientist Ripperoo, Ninja Cortex, and Gangster Pinstripe. Now, as for my number one pick, this may not surprise those who know me, but my number one favorite skin from Nitro Fueled is Beach Dingodile. Much like with Princess Coco, this was a skin I immediately fell in love with the moment I saw it in the customization trailer that came out before the game. And I made it my personal duty to unlock this skin as soon as I got my hands on the game. Everything about this skin, in my opinion, is just amazing. The colors, the swim trunks, the sunglasses, the colors. Did I say that? I think I said that. And the fact that Dingodile has a water tank and a gun in place of his flamethrower. Oh wait, I forgot I can't use those as contributing factors. Oh well. Not to mention, being a very summer kind of guy, this one just speaks to me all the more, especially as I love to swim during the summers a lot whenever I get the opportunity to do so. Basically, I just love this skin a lot, and in my honest opinion, is easily the number one best skin in Nitro Fueled. So, those were my choices. Did you like any of the skins I showed off? Did any of your favorites make it on here? Be sure to comment down below on what your favorites were and why. And, until then, I'm King Gargantuas, and I'll see you all next time.